Hey, the common plowboy, garbage man again. If you watched my last video on the priesthood of the believer, um, I mentioned that, and this is the only reason I'm doing these videos. I don't like to, I've never wanted to be one of these guys that goes on YouTube and pretends that, he's some kind of Bible scholar or something like that, and that's just not my thing. But all we have left is the Bible believers. In 93, 94, I became a Bible believer after being an apostate fundamentalist for 20 years. I had a New American Standard Bible, Calvinist, didn't know anything about public witnessing, had no final authority, none of it. And when I became a Bible believer back in 93, 94, I started to see, hey, Dr. Ruckman, Sam Gipp, and Gail Ripplinger, and of course, King James Bible. Wow, and it meant something to me, and it's like, wow, out of the darkness and into the bright light. But we're now in 2017. Doc has passed away, and we're closer to the Lord coming than ever before. And so, of course, we're going to have heresies and junk even within our own camp. This 3.5-year tribulation garbage that's coming out of PBI now. It's unacceptable, and it's really sad. All we have left is the Bible believers, really. The rest, I expect the rest to just be, a garbage can with a label of Christian on it. I expect that. But all we have left are the Bible believers and the good preachers that we've got to feed us as the Lord gives them stuff to give to us from the pulpit, right? And I'm seeing heresies starting to pop up left and right, like the 3.5-year tribulation. It's just, now I got to come on here and I'm not going to straighten the mess out, obviously, but something needs to be said. And another one of these heresies is coming up, and maybe you don't think much of this, and it's not a big deal. To me, all doctrine is a big deal. I think that any doctrine that's in my King James Bible is important, and it's to be rightly divided. And if you're off, you're off. Not a little off. You're either on or you're off. And I think we should be on. I think we should. Our doctrine should be pure. It should be uncorruptible. One of the latest things is that in the Millennium, if the child puts his hands in the cockatrice's den, and if the lion tries to lay down with the lamb, that they'll be eaten, and none of that stuff's going to happen until eternity. And I understand where they get that. They're misapplying something in Isaiah, which we'll look at. But let's look at what the Bible has to say about this. Okay, when can the lion lie down with the lamb? When can the child put its hand in the cockatrice's den and be safe? When will that take place? Jesus Christ, in Matthew chapter 19, verse 28, and Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That's millennium. That's not eternity. That's millennium. And that's the regeneration. That's when nature is regenerated. I mean, do you know what happens in the tribulation? What is left of this planet is absolutely destroyed. There's very little left of it. The oceans are destroyed. I mean, everything is ruined in a 7-year tribulation. 7-year tribulation, not 3.5. In 7 years, the earth is completely. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there's very few animals left. The ocean's about dying. And the Lord, when he comes back, and for it to be a millennial reign, for it to be anything worth having for 1,000 years, he has to regenerate it. And that's the regeneration when the Son of Man comes. if you look in Acts chapter 3, in Acts chapter 3, verse 21, I'll start in verse 20. And he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heavens must receive until the times of the restitution of all things. What's that? Jesus Christ isn't going to be back in the millennium? The heavens are going to receive him until eternity? I don't think so. Whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. I think that's pretty plain. Or how about Romans chapter 8, verse 18, I'll start there. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time, this is Romans. Well, what's he talking about? He's talking about the church age, right? For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with, obviously the next time, with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Verse 19, for the earnest expectation of the creature, that's creation, animals, all that sort of thing, the lion, the cockatrice, all that. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. But when is that? Eternity? The creature's waiting until eternity. We're not going to have the manifestation of the sons of God until eternity. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. That's the Christians. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. So there you go, and that's right out of Romans. Let's look at another passage. Okay, how about here's where it talks about the wolf and the lion and all this kind of stuff. Isaiah chapter 11. Isaiah chapter 11. Let's start in verse 4. But with righteousness shall he, Jesus Christ, judge the poor and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth, and he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, second advent. And with the breath of his lips, second advent, shall he slay the wicked. The wicked, doctrinal application, the Antichrist. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and faithfulness the girdle of his reins. Context, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb after the second advent. And the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. Verse 9, they shall not hurt nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters covering the sea. Yes, it will. Now you say, oh well, there's still a rebellion at the end of the millennium. Therefore, it doesn't say sin's going to be wiped out. Obviously, there's going to be a rebellion at the end of the millennium. You can have the regeneration of the creation without sin being wiped out. Sin is not completely done away with until after the white throne judgment and eternity begins. So that rebellion at the end of the millennium has nothing to do with the regeneration of nature. The two are not even connected. Verse 10, and in that day shall there be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for the ensign of the people, and to it shall the Gentiles seek. What, they don't seek in the millennium to the Lord? Yeah, they do. And his rest. Now, if you're even an average Bible student, you know that his rest is the millennium. So right there in the context, his rest shall be glorious. Verse 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time. When does that take place? In that day shall the Lord set his hand the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left. This started in 1940, the 1940s, 1948. Israel was reborn as a nation, and he's bringing them in. And then at the second advent, Israel shall be reborn in a day. They're going to be redeemed in a day as all the Jews that are left, and they're going to be his people again. He shall be their God, and this is all part of the second recovery of Israel. This doesn't wait until eternity. The fulfilling of that thing, the fulfilling of the Lord gathering the nation of Israel and recovering them the second time, that started around 1948, and actually before that started bringing them in. But World War I was to prepare the land for the Jew, and World War II was to prepare the Jew for the land and all that. But all that is completed at the second advent and into the millennium. You don't wait till eternity for all that to happen. Last place. And here's where they get screwed up. And I'm talking about the best. I'm talking about preachers who have been Bible believers, and I've enjoyed their messages, and I've learned a lot about them. They've taught me a lot. But, we're all men, and sometimes we screw up. And here's where they screw up. They go to Isaiah chapter 65. In Isaiah chapter 65, they read verse 17. For behold, I create a new heaven and new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come into mind. Oh, so we're in the new heavens and new earth in Isaiah 65. So where it talks about in verse 25, the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion and so forth. That doesn't happen until eternity, because the context is new heaven and new earth. Well, if you studied your Bible very much, or even read it very much, you know that the Lord doesn't always put things in the premillennial order. He doesn't always, here's the tribulation, here's the second advent, here's the millennium, here's the new heavens and new earth. Sometimes he mixes those things around. That's the way he writes it. But if you look at the context, if you look at what's being written here, yeah, he talks about the new heaven and the new earth, but then you go on, verse 20. All right, let's see if verse 20 lines up with the new heavens and the new earth, or if he's going to go back into the millennial context like we just read about. All right, verse 20. There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days, for the child shall die. I thought the last enemy that should be destroyed is death. Doesn't death come through sin? Doesn't death come through the curse? Here's a child dying. The child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner, well, not only is here a sinner dying, but a sinner in eternity? You haven't been thinking or studying or something, because there's no more sin in eternity. There's no more death. The wages of sin is death. If you have sinners in eternity, then you have wages from those sins, which is death, and you're going to have a judgment beyond the white throne judgment. The last judgment is the white throne judgment before eternity. You're not going to have eternity, and then somewhere in eternity, got to have another judgment because we have more sinners, and we have more people dying and going to hell, and then they got to come up and be judged and go. No. In eternity, you have no more sin, you have no more death, you have no more curse. And it says, but the sinner being 100 years old shall be what? Accursed. You have death, you have sinners, and you have accursed people. And in Revelation chapter 22, verse 13, it says, there shall be no more curse in eternity. So you're not rightly dividing the word of truth. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, so on and so forth. And here's our context. And it goes right in, verse 25. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw, like the bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord. So don't get messed up when you see verse 17, and it starts off with new heaven and new earth, because that does not set the context for the rest of chapter 65 in Isaiah. The Lord mentions that in verse 17, and then he goes back into a millennial context from verse 18 to the end of verse 25. So it's in the millennium that all of that begins, where the wolf shall lay down with the lamb, and the lion won't eat, the lion won't attack other animals, and the child can put his hands on the cockatrice's den and all that. That takes place in the millennium, not eternity. So it's just the Bible. I'm nobody, I don't claim to be anybody special, but I am jealous for what's left of the King James Bible group, if you want to call it that, the Bible believers. It just, things are happening to our group of all groups, the Bible believers, the Ruckmanites, if that's what you want to call it, if you don't want to call it that. And it's really sad. And so I'm going to make some of these fairly short videos. This one's gone now almost 17 minutes, which I didn't plan for it to try and at least get a word out there publicly that, hey, this stuff is heresy. It doesn't belong within the Bible believers. Somebody else wants to, preach this crap, then let them preach it. But let's not have it within the Bible-believing camp. And it is a camp. We can call it that. I used to be in the other camp, and I have no problem being in the Ruckmanite Bible-believing camp. I have no problem with that, because it's the right camp. And I guess that's all. Thank you.